Hey, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online U.S. History from 1877 to present. Today we're going to look at Unit 13, but we're going to look at lesson number 5, the Environmental Revolution. We're going to talk a little bit about how the United States of America, or people in the United States of America, become more conscious, of course, their environment. And we're going to find that several laws will be, of course, enacted to ensure that we have safe drinking water and safe air. So with that, what we'll do is start with the unit focus questions, of which there are 3. We won't answer them, of course, today, but what we will do at the end of the conclusion of the unit, we will talk about them at length. What effect did the Nixon presidency have on American public psyche? Why did conservatism become such an attractive political philosophy in the United States? And describe the effect of technology and scientific innovation on the increased globalization of the United States. Well, we have our academic vocabulary, not a whole lot of words today. What we want you to do, of course, is write them down, define them yourself, and as they come up in the lesson, we'll address as many of them as we can. All right, lesson focus question, we have 2 of which we will answer, of course, at the end of the lesson. What environmental issues caused the environmental movement in the United States? And why has nuclear energy as a possible answer to the energy shortage been stalled in America? What we want you to do is take out your journals, write down this question: why has nuclear power been an unpopular solution to the energy crisis in America? At this time, take a few minutes, write the question down, create your response, and we'll talk about it on the other side. All right, you should have had enough time that you were able to go through, of course, and create your answer about why it is that you believe nuclear power, of course, has stalled or is an unpopular solution in terms of the American public for the energy crisis. Well, I think the biggest and most important thing to identify is that word right there, that 7-letter word that says nuclear. And when people hear that term, they think of nuclear bombs and nuclear weapons, and they think of danger. And I think the biggest reason why a lot of people haven't embraced nuclear power is because of the fact that they associate nuclear, of course, with devastation. They think about Hiroshima, they think about Nagasaki, and they think about the possibilities of disaster and the loss of life. And because of that, it's a lot easier to embrace, gas power, electricity, because it doesn't bring with them that stigma, if you will. The birth of environmentalism. The book, The Silent Spring, was written by Rachel Carson in 1962. It unofficially started the environmental movement. Carson, in her book, warned about the use of DDT and how pesticides like it could devastate wildlife and birds. What she was doing is she was premiering an idea that one day the birds of spring will not be heard again because what we're doing is we're polluting their environment. The movement to protect the environment kicked off in April 1970 with the creation of Earth Day. Locals started the movement at the grassroots level, aiding organizations like the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, Greenpeace, and the Wilderness Society. In 1970, President Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency and passed the Clean Air and Clean Water Act of 1972 and the Endangered Species Act of 1973, showcasing the federal government's commitment to environmentalism. In other words, it's here. With Republican candidate and President of the United States of America, Richard Nixon, he creates this movement because he recognizes that the government has some responsibility in protecting America's natural resources. Here's a picture of Rachel Carson, of course, who wrote the Silent Spring that kicks off the environmental movement. Here is the logo for the Environmental Protection Agency, which creates and sets and enforces pollution standards in the country today. Here is Greenpeace and the Sierra Club. There were 2 organizations that were built on environmental advocacy. Environmental disasters. Now, once again, we were talking about that nuclear thing a few minutes ago. It's not going to help that we're going to have 2 accidents regarding nuclear power. The first will happen in the United States of America at 3 Mile Island, where 2 examples why environmental protection at the federal level was needed. At 3 Mile Island, we have a nuclear accident or reactor accident where people were afraid, of course, that it was going to blow up and people in Pennsylvania were going to be killed, and they were afraid that nuclear fallout or hazardous waste, of course, would make its way and kill people from the fallout. And then you had Love Canal where some chemicals, of course, weren't disposed of properly. So Love Canal and then 3 Mile Island in the United States of America highlighted the need for environmentalism. Love Canal in the 1970s highlighted the consequences when toxic waste was wasn't disposed of properly, and 3 Mile Island highlighted that, though potentially viable, how nuclear power could lead to radiation leaks that could harm citizens. And because of that, it was very difficult for people to get behind the use of nuclear power. On the left, you have some protesters, of course, against Love Canal. He says, I love that statement. It says, we've got better things to do than sit around and be contaminated. And then on the right over here, you have 3 Mile Island, of course, in Pennsylvania. What environmental issues cause the environmental movement in the United States? And why has nuclear energy as a possible answer to the energy shortage been stalled in America? Well, I think you probably have a pretty good grasp on what those particular answers are. So in looking at those lesson-focused questions, let's look at each individual one. What environmental issues cause the environmental movement in the United States? Air and water pollution. We get Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, where she foreshadows the spring, of course, without birds singing. The use of dangerous pesticides like DDT. The first Earth Day, which led to creation of EPA and major environmental laws. So for the first time, we start to recognize, not only in this particular country, but throughout the rest of the world, that there is a need to preserve, natural resources and the natural environment on Earth. Why has nuclear energy as a possible answer to the energy shortage been stalled in America? I think we talked about that ad nauseum. It's because people are afraid. We're going to have nuclear incidents at 3 Mile Island here in the United States, and then Chernobyl in Russia, and they're going to see these two accidents, of course, as the best possible reason not to have nuclear power, because it could lead to disaster, especially like it did, of course, at Chernobyl in the Soviet Union. Possible contamination from waste disposal, high costs associated with nuclear energy infrastructure, and these were things, of course, that contributed to the non-use or the non-serious use, I guess you can say, of nuclear energy. Because if we really wanted to get behind nuclear energy and reduce costs, we probably could. With nuclear energy, of course, that could be a renewable source. All right. That ends lesson number 5, the environmental movement. And we hope you gain some insights as why it is, of course, the environmental gets its start, of course, in the United States of America, of course, and spreads throughout the rest of the world. Because for the first time, we start to recognize that we need to be concerned, with the planet. And we need to be concerned with what our impact, of course, on the planet is. And that's highlighted, of course, in that book that kind of foreshadows, A Life Without Birds by Rachel Carson, The Silent Spring. But once again, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting, Online U.S. History from 1877, and please do not take my word for it. Do your own research, draw your own conclusions, and with that, we'll see you next time.